All right, welcome back to my C# instructional videos. This series, I'm doing the 2021 Advent of Code. They release one puzzle, actually it's two puzzles a day, but it's one puzzle with two parts every day up until Christmas. So today being the 2nd of December, which this will go up on YouTube a little bit later, so it won't be the 2nd when it releases, but at this point, there's only two puzzles out, so tonight I'm going to go ahead and do two different puzzles with both parts. I've already done them, so I have a GitHub repo set up where I have the basic solution, and then I'm also going to have a version for them with what we cover on the stream. So if you do go to the GitHub, which the link should be below, if you do go to my GitHub, you'll see that there's two answers for each day, and those are because I do one for work and then I do one for the stream. Again, Advent of Code. If you don't know the website, adventofcode.com. We're in the calendar year 2021. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the first puzzle. So I'm just going to read it off, and then we'll talk about how to solve this puzzle. So this one, it starts off with, you're minding your own business on a ship at sea when the overboard alarm goes off. You rush to see if you can help. Apparently, one of the elves tripped and accidentally sent the sleigh keys flying into the ocean. Before you know it, you're inside a submarine. The elves keep ready for situations just like this. It's covered in Christmas lights, because of course it is. And it even has an experimental antenna that should be able to track the keys if you can boost the signal strength high enough. There's a little meter that indicates the antenna's signal strength by displaying 0 to 50 stars. All your instincts tell you that in order to save Christmas, you'll need to get 50 stars by December 25th. So you'll collect stars by solving puzzles. 2 puzzles will be made available on each day in the Advent calendar. The second puzzle is unlocked when you complete the first. Each puzzle grants 1 star. Good luck. So that's the intro. Today's problem is, as the submarine drops below the surface of the ocean, it automatically performs a sonar sweep of the nearby ocean seafloor. On a small screen, the sonar sweep report, which is your puzzle input, appears. Each line is a measurement of the seafloor depth as the sweep looks further and further away from the submarine. For example, suppose you had the following report: 199, 200, 208, etc., etc. This report indicates that, scanning outward from the submarine, the sonar sweep found depths of 199, 200, 208, 210, and so on. The first order of business is to figure out how quickly the depth increases, just so you know what you're dealing with. You never know if the keys will get carried away into deep water by an ocean current or a fish or something. To do this, count the number of times the depth measurement increases from the previous measurement. There is no measurement before the first measurement, so in the example above, the changes are as follows. When you go from 199, that doesn't do anything because there's no previous measurement. The second measurement is 200, so it increased. 208 increased, 210 increased, but it went back to 200, so it decreased. Then it goes up again from there, 207, 240, 290, 269, then it goes backwards again, and then 263. So in this instance, there are 7 measurements that are larger than the previous measurement. So when we get our puzzle input, we need to figure out how many measurements are larger than the previous. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Okay, I'm going to start. I'm doing all my projects in a single solution this time around, so it just is one GitHub repo instead of a whole bunch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click here. I'm going to go down to Add New Project. Okay, the project we're adding is going to be called Day 1. It's going to be a console app, sorry. It's going to be Day 1, but it's for the stream. So this is my stream version. Okay, I'm still using .NET 6. There is a really cool change that was made in .NET 6 that I really enjoy. You no longer have the pomp and ceremony that goes with a new program CS class. Instead, here you can write it more similar to like Python, where it's pretty straightforward. But for what's the phrase I want? For more proper, I guess proper is the word I want. For a more proper build, I'm actually going to build a secondary class that handles all of my processing. I'm going to call it data processing service. Okay, so I'm going to add a new class, data processing service. Now you'll find with these advent of code, they're pretty easy to do in a singular class with a couple lines of code, but because I want to keep proper structure, I'm going to go ahead and have a service that handles this. Now, normally I would actually inject this service with dependency injection. However, in this case, I'm not going to use dependency injection because it's a console app, and I don't want to try to write multiple new classes just for dependency injection. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we need to make sure we are it's in the same namespace, so we don't actually need to make sure we're using. What we're gonna do is we're gonna have a new, so data processing service. We're gonna call it ds equals new data processing service, and we're gonna figure out why it doesn't like that. Because it doesn't like the namespace. I do need to use a namespace. Okay, that's interesting. Alright, so what we're going to do here, we're going to create a new method. It's going to be a public method. It's going to return an int. So public int, we're going to call it part1 processing. And we're going to pass it, a list of strings. Well, it's going to be an array of strings, so string array. We're going to call it depths. Okay, and so we need an int count. We're counting. What are we counting? We're counting depth increases. So depth increase count equals. We're going to start it at 0. We'll increment it depending on if it increases from the previous. And we're going to return depth increase count. So that's going to be our number that we return. Okay, we'll come back to this in a second and do the actual logic here. Before we get there, though, what we need to do is we need to set up our data. So if you've watched any of my videos before, I pretty much arrange this the same way every time. We have a data folder, and in our data folder, we're going to add text files. So the first text file is going to be test data.txt, and then our other text file is going to be the actual data.txt. All right. Let's go ahead and snag our test data, which is this series of numbers here. Okay. That's not what I want. This is what I want. Test data. We're just going to paste it over top of everything, save it, and while we're at it, we might as well get our actual data as well, which is our puzzle input. Roll there. And here. Data. Paste it there. Okay. And as with my others, I'm also going to use a stream reader to read out my my data file. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna use the built-in stream reader. Oh, that's not, I just want this. I want the built-in stream reader stuff. And then here. That's all I want. Okay. Mostly because I don't want to type all that out manually. So going back here, stream reader. It's gonna open the file. We want to make sure that the file we're opening is the test data first. We're going to read that file, and then we're going to split it up on new lines. Okay, so that's our string array that we're going to pass into the data processing service function. So we want to have a variable that returns our depth return. Depth increase count. We're going to have it equal ds dot part 1 processing. We're going to pass in our depths. Okay, that's all it's going to do. Okay, and then when it gets our depths back, we're going to say that the depth of the ocean, sea, it's a sea, not an ocean, has increased, depth, increased count, times. That's all we're going to do. And then we're going to do a console dot read key just to make sure that the console doesn't close. Hey, thanks for the follow. Just to make sure the console doesn't close after it runs and we don't get a chance to read our data. Okay, so that part's set up. We're done here. Everything should be done here. So we're getting our data service, we're reading our file, we're splitting it up on new lines, and then we're going to pass that array into our processing piece that'll process those and return the number of times that the depth has increased. So in here, this is where we do our processing. Well, what do we need to do? We need to do a for each. I'm going to do a for loop, and I'll tell you why in just a second. Int I equals 1. I is less than depth dot length. I plus plus. Okay. All right. So why did I do a for instead of a for each? Because what I'm going to do to prevent null reference exceptions is I'm going to start at the first position in the list or in the array, because I'm going to compare the first one to the previous one instead of trying to start at 0 and compare to the next and then try not to go past the list number or the list length. Okay, so instead of trying to not hit the end, I'm just gonna make it so I don't hit the beginning. Okay. So what we need to do is for each of these numbers that is parsed out, we need to turn it into an integer because it's going to be a string. So var, I'm just going to do d equals depths. Oops. I like 6.0 because of the autocomplete. It's a lot better here. But I don't want just depths I want int.parse to turn it into an integer. And here, and here. Okay. So, excuse me. Goodness. All right. Do I want to? Nah, screw it. I'm debating on, do I want to just parse them all the one time? Yeah, I want to parse them all the one time. Okay, I'm gonna modify this real quick. So string reader depths equals data split. Okay, we're gonna create a new function real quick because I don't want to. It's not important because this is super easy and fast. But if you were dealing with a lot of data, it would be a lot slower for the system to have to parse the number and then compare it, and then parse the number, and then compare it, and parse the number, and compare it, and do it that way. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn all our list or our array into a list of ints, and just parse it the one time, and then just compare them at that point. Okay, so we're going to do list int equal dlist equals new list int. We don't want to do new list int. We'll do equals ds dot, and we're going to create a convert to ints, and we're going to pass in our depths. And that's what that will do. And then here we're going to pass in our dlist instead. So let's go back here. Let's make this quick change here. This is going to be a list of ints. Okay. Depths, and this is no longer length, it's count. Why is that? Oh, I don't need to do the int parse. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. I'll just copy it. Public list ints, because that's what we're kicking back. We're kicking back a list of ints. We're going to convert to ints. We need a string array. We're going to call it depths string. Okay, and this is where we're going to do it for each. String depth in depth string equals okay, so we get our what's wrong? I don't know what you need. We don't need the I anymore. We do need to create a list. Int equals new list int. We're going to call it list. And we're going to return list because that's what we need to do. Now, every time we parse a new integer, we're just going to do list.add. We want list add d. Okay. Okay. So what we have here, we have it returning a list of integers to us, and we're taking that list of integers, and we're going to compare them. So, if depths at I is greater than depths pths at I minus 1, because if you remember, I said I was comparing it to the previous number, not the post number, and we're just going to do depths increase count plus plus. That's it. Because I'm a stickler for shit, I do that. Okay. Should be perfect. Let's run a test. Oh, I didn't set my... That's the thing with multiple projects. You have to set your startup project. Set as startup project. What? I know. He's been spinning powder around. Sorry about that. Okay. The depths of the sea has increased 7 times. So now that I have the right project running, I know that it has increased 7 times. Let's double check this with our test. It says 7 measurements that are larger than the previous, which means we should be good now to test our actual data. So let's go back here to our program, and then we're going to do the actual data. Run that one. And it has increased 1722. Oops, that's not what I want. So we'll go back here and see if that's right. Boom, we are right. So let's continue to part 2. Alright, so part 2 changes this a little bit. So now you've considered every single measurement, and it isn't useful as you thought it was. So there's just too much noise in the data. Instead, you're going to consider sums of a 3-measurement sliding window. Again, considering the above example. So in this case, you're going to add up these 3 numbers, 199, 200, 208, as dataset A, and then you're going to add up 200, 208, and 210 as dataset B. And you're going to compare those instead of just individual numbers. Okay, that's what this is about. So in this case, 199, 200, 208 increase is 607, and then dataset B adds up to 618. So that would be an increase. Okay, and then the next sum comes to 618, so it's no change, therefore no increase count. And then it goes down by 1, so no increase count. And then it goes up, then it goes up, then it goes up, then it goes up. So that would give you 5. Okay. So let's go ahead and fix our code for that. And this is why I did the data processing service as a separate service, is so that way I could do part 2 processing. Public int part 2 processing. And we're going to pass in the same thing, the list of int depths And it's going to look almost identical. All right, so I actually could do, I'm literally going to do this. I'm going to go boom here, copy that, okay, paste it there. Now, instead of here being this is greater than this, the only thing I'm going to do is change this to start at 3, because I want to do 0, 1, and 2 as set 1, and then 1, 2, and 3 as set 2, okay? So, what I'm going to do is if depths at, let's add this in parentheses, so that way I can clearly indicate what I'm comparing. So if this plus depths at I minus 1 plus depths at I minus 2, no, at 2, okay? Alright, and then I can do the same thing here. And we'll add our parentheses here. And here. Now this one, it needs to be minus 1, minus 2, and minus 3. Okay, so this is at position 0 in the list. This is at position 1, and then this one is at position 2. So 0, 1, 2 versus this one being at 1, this one being at 2, and then this one being at 3. So literally, that's all we're doing here. Now we have to make one small modification to program.cs. So what we're going to do is var depth, not decrease count. We're going to do depth triple count equals ds dot part 2 processing dlist. I love the autocomplete in 6.0. Super good. And we also need to create a new output. So we're going to make sure that we write our new number out. The depth of the sea has increased. How do we want to phrase this? The depth of the sea has increased for triple measurements. Okay, and we'll run it. So our first part had us at 1722, and then this time it put us at 1748. Okay. I didn't run the test data. I should have run the test data. I didn't switch it back. I forgot. But that's okay. We can check this. Is this right? Correct. It is complete, or it is correct. So, we have completed day 1. We can go back to the calendar. You see that we have both stars here. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the... okay, so I'm in Visual Studio 2022, released a month, not even a month ago. Let me turn off the recording real quick. Hey everyone, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed what you saw, please drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe. If you haven't already, please join the Discord server. We are looking to grow as much as we can, and hopefully you found this content interesting. Hope to see you in the next video.